What's up guys, this is Ultimate Device Vids, and in this video we're going to be doing a speed test between the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 10. So as of recording this video, the iPhone 14 Pro is the newest premium tier iPhone out right now, and the iPhone 10 is the oldest premium tier iPhone that's still supported by the latest iOS version as of recording this video, being iOS 16. Speed testing the newest iPhone in comparison to the oldest iPhone that's still supported by the latest iOS version is a yearly tradition on this channel, so without any further ado, let's get started. And just to let you guys know, both devices are running at their peak performance capability in regards to their battery health, and they're both running the latest version of iOS 16 as of recording this video. And we're going to kick things off with some app launching tests, and starting off with some simple light applications. And of course, as to be expected, the iPhone 14 Pro is a little bit faster than the iPhone 10, but for these super simple light applications, it's only, a second, sometimes even less than that, like a split second difference between the two. Definitely not anything super substantial, just again that split second difference that you might not even notice in day-to-day life. So in terms of standard, more simple applications, probably what you use most throughout your day, a very minor difference between the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 14 Pro. And as we start to get into some of these slightly heavier game applications, a little bit of a more noticeable difference shows, but really nothing too huge yet again, maybe a couple seconds difference. Apple Silicon processors over the past several years have gotten extremely powerful to the point where using a device like this that's 5 years older is really not going to be that big of a difference in terms of average day-to-day tasks. And this is fantastic because it future-proofs iPhones for many years. And as we start to get into some of the more heavier game applications, a little bit of a more noticeable difference starts to show, but it's still within the range of 10 seconds or less. So again, not a big deal. And PUBG here being one of the heavier applications in this app launching test, I'm just going to go ahead and speed through the remainder of the app launch on both devices. Next up, we're going to launch Asphalt 9, and as you can see here, as to be expected, the iPhone 14 Pro does open it up first, but the iPhone 10 follows just a few seconds later. And I also want to launch a few simple stock applications, and as to be expected, with things like this that are super simple, almost an imperceivable difference. So once again, nothing to worry about in terms of just average day-to-day tasks. And next up, we're going to do a consecutive app launching test. So I'm going to launch the same applications consecutively, one after the next, on both of these devices, and I'm going to show both devices doing this side by side, just to give you an idea of what it's like switching between applications in fast succession on both of these devices. So with the app switchers cleared on both, we'll go ahead and kick things off. And yet again, for the simpler, lighter applications, same thing to report, just a second or two difference max, with the iPhone 10 closely following the iPhone 14 Pro. And as soon as we start to get into some of the slightly heavier game applications, a little bit of a more noticeable difference starts to show, with the iPhone 14 Pro pulling a few applications ahead of the iPhone 10, but the iPhone 10 catches up without a problem. It's just a few seconds slower. As I always like to say in speed tests like this, of course, when you're comparing two devices side by side like we're doing today, of course, you're going to see these minor differences, but in day-to-day life, when you're just going about your business, differences of just a few seconds is really not going to be that big of a deal. So yeah, super impressive performance on account of both devices here. And I'm just going to go ahead and speed through the remainder of the consecutive app launching test here. And directly following the consecutive app launching test, I want to do a quick RAM management check just to see which applications remained open in the background. And just to let you guys know, the iPhone 14 Pro has 6 gigabytes of RAM and the iPhone 10 has 3 gigabytes of RAM. And we didn't really do anything super CPU intensive, but I still wanted to go back and just see which applications remained open. And no surprise, on the iPhone 14 Pro, every single application remained open. And on the iPhone 10 also, every single application remained open except for Minecraft for whatever reason, which did show the initial splash screen when launching it. But once again, every other application remained open. Next, we're going to do a Face ID test. I'm just going to unlock both devices by tapping on the screens, and I'm going to show each device doing this side by side. And it was lightning quick on both devices, just a hair faster on the iPhone 14 Pro. And real quick, I just want to load a few web pages in Safari. Of course, with tests like this, you should keep in mind that this entirely depends on the internet connection that you're using. But as you can see here, nothing to worry about in terms of overall web page loading capabilities, both very quick. I just loaded up a few web pages on google.com and a few web pages on apple.com. And in terms of scrolling smoothness, not just when web browsing, but everywhere in iOS, both devices are super smooth. This is something that iOS is notoriously very good at. However, the iPhone 14 Pro does have the 120Hz ProMotion display, while the iPhone 10's max display refresh refresh rate is 60 Hz. And this is something that I really can't show off on camera, you just have to see it in person, but it definitely makes the experience of scrolling and animations in general just a lot smoother. And it is a nice quality of life improvement, but it's not a huge deal and you definitely don't need it. Next up, we're going to run a few benchmark apps, starting off with Geekbench, and as to be expected with 4 generations of iPhones in between these two, there's definitely a pretty substantial difference in the numbers. And next up, we're going to run an Antutu benchmark, and same thing to report here, a pretty significant difference in the numbers. So at the end of the day, as you've seen throughout this video, the iPhone X still holds up quite well in 2022 in terms of speed and performance. Of course, it's going to be a little bit slower than the latest iPhone generations, and you might experience a little bit of lag here or there, but it's probably not going to be anything that's going to significantly impact your experience. I think it definitely goes back to what I was saying earlier, how Apple Silicon processors have gotten very powerful over the last few years and are able to stand the test of time. But guys, that just about wraps it up for this video. If you guys are using either of these devices, let me know down below in the comments section how the speed and performance has been for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.